everyone, and welcome back to this Cinema 4D course. In this lesson, we're going to make more of a complex model. I'm going to show you how to add a background, and then how to model basing yourself on that background image. I'll also introduce you to the modifiers, how to add some color to the scene, and then we'll improve the lighting and also the final image. So the first thing we'll do is go to the front view, go to Options, Configure, and here you have these various tabs, so select Back, and this is where we can add a background. In this case, it's a kind of tribal mask or totem that I downloaded from Freepik.com. On Freepik you can find lots of inspiration for your designs, and there's thousands of resources you can download too. So we'll open the image, and here it is, and we'll use this as a base for the shape we're going to build. So we'll first make a cube. Okay, I can see that the image isn't placed quite right, so that's very easy to fix. Just go to Options, Configure, and here on the offset you can move the image to put it in place. So we're going to use this to make this kind of wooden part of the mask. The rest we'll do as separate objects. Okay, so we can now make this object editable, and we can start to make the cuts to begin modeling. As always, polygon selection, go to the knife, and in mode select loop. So we'll make a cut around here, another one here, more or less. If we go to the views, in perspective, you can see that this is what we have up to now. We can select this polygon here and right-click, and we'll extrude. Use the bottom image to see where you're going. You see how on the bottom this part widens? No problem. Select the points, and we'll select these points here, pressing Shift to add to the selection, and now we just scale. Okay, great. We also need to add these cuts here, so let's go back to the knife. And we'll do one here, another one here, and the last one right here. And then we'll do exactly the same as before. Go back to the views, take a look at perspective, and we're going to extrude all these parts here. Remember, you can have all 4 views open at once, which is a really comfortable way of working. Okay, right-click as before and extrude. We'll make the first one quite small. In the image, there's like a small step. And then we'll just select this one, and we'll extrude again, but a bit further down. We more or less have the basic shape of the mask, but it needs to be a bit wider. Okay, so make sure point selection is on. Deactivate this option, and let's move it a little bit this way to make it wider. We're now going to start making the crown. In making this, I'm going to show you some new tools. Let's start with the cylinder. We'll scale it quite a bit. Okay, it needs to be a little bit bigger. It needs to be around this big according to the image. So maybe this bottom part also needs to be bigger, or at least wider. Okay, let's just move this cylinder this way to put it in place. Use the top view to help you. If you look at the crown on the image, you see it has a band going around it that we need to extrude as it sticks out. So we'll go back to the knife and select the loop. And we can make a cut around here and another one here, using the image to guide us. Now we'll go to Select, Loop Selection, and activate the polygon selection. And now we'll right-click, Extrude Inner. Or you can extrude normally or outwards if you prefer, it's up to you. Okay, now I'll show you something a bit more complicated, which are the cloners. To show you this, we'll make a small sphere. Let's scale it down, something like this. So this sphere is one of these little balls we see here on the crown. Now we could do this manually, one by one, but we'd probably be here until tomorrow. So Cinema 4D, like other 3D software, offers us tools that, if we know how to use them properly, help us to speed up our workflow, and in general, they make things easier for us. So in this case, we have the cloners, which you'll find here. If you go to MoGraph, okay, let's select it. Nothing happens. It needs to be an editable object. So if we place the sphere inside, it should work. So to work with the cloner, remember to make the object editable. Now you see that when we place the sphere inside the cloner, we have 3 balls. And that's because here in count we have 3. The mode also affects the position of the cloner, so in this case, linear. So if I increase this, I get lots more spheres. We want the mode, instead of linear, to be radial. And we also need to change the plane. So instead of XY, we need to change it to XZ. Also, we'll increase the radius so we can fit around the crown and add more spheres. As you saw, this way was much easier than if we had done it manually. It would have taken us so much longer. You can still adjust all of this. So if you go to the sphere, here you can make it smaller, for example, and then all the balls become smaller too. Let's go back to the cloner and increase the count. Go back to the views and have a look at the image to see how it's coming along. And maybe if you need to add any more. Just increase the radius a little more. I think I'll put 30 here. I think that's okay. Okay, so this part is finished. Let's move on now to the feathers that are sticking out of the top. So first we'll create a cube. There are many ways we could do this. We could use Symmetry, among lots of other ways. But what we'll do first is this element. Okay, more or less here. This is an element that's also going to be in a circular position, so it's not so complicated either. We're going to do the same thing that we did before. Make the object editable, select point selection, so then we can adjust the points. As you see in the image, the feathers have a slightly slanted shape, so we'll move them like this, make sure this option is not selected. Okay, so more or less, we'll create the shape that we want. Let's scale it as well. We could also make it a bit pointy at the ends, and that's easy. Select these points and just move them in like this. Now, to make the object next to the one we just made, we could go to this menu here and select Symmetry. So place the cube inside Symmetry, and we automatically get the same object, but on the other side. So that's just one way of doing it. And see how if I move one, then the symmetry means that the other one moves too. But we're actually going to do this a little bit different. The image is only a guide. We don't have to do exactly the same thing. Actually, let's continue with the nose, and then we'll decide later how to finish off the crown. If we're going to do a circle of them, then we could just do it exactly the same as we did for the spheres. So to do the nose, we'll use this cube. So let's move it to where the nose is, more or less. Okay, let's make it editable, select point selection, and then it's a case of moving them, or rather scaling them, to get the shape of the nose. Make sure it covers the whole area of the nose. We'll also have to make some cuts, one here for instance. And then we'll need to extrude these parts here. Be careful, this option here, make sure it's not selected. And then extrude. So as you see, we're making simple objects still, it's not that difficult. But it's definitely more complex than the previous object, and we're getting a more complete kind of model. So I'm just adjusting the points, getting the shape that I want. We need another cut here. And as always, we'll adjust these cuts that we made. Okay, so now we have the shape of the nose. Now we could do what we did in the first exercise, which was to apply a Hypernurbs. We don't want the nose to look so square, so boxy. So we can use the Hypernurbs to soften the edges. So as we saw when we made the banana, the edges have softened and the shape has become more organic. But we might not want it so organic. So let's just remove this Nurbs a moment. And we're going to make a few cuts. Okay, something like this. Okay, let's see how it looks. Okay, so see how it started to change. The edges are still soft, but it's just a little bit more geometric. Okay, I think that's fine. I can leave it like that. Now we could select this bit here and bring it out a little bit. I just want to show you something important related to the selection tool. So we have these points selected, for instance. Okay, let's do it properly. Now we want to move this selection. There's an option here, soft selection. What this does is apply a kind of softener to the selection. So if I select enable, the model becomes this white color and it generates a sort of force that's indicated with the yellowish tone. So see how the color changes if I lower the intensity here, or if I put it really high. So depending on what I select, it will move more or less. There aren't many polygons here, so you can't really see, but if I do it on a sphere that has a lot of segments, okay, make it editable. Now imagine you want to move these polygons here, or this one right here. So look, when we move these, the polygons also move from the surrounding area, the ones that are included in the intensity area that we've selected. So if I make this area bigger, when I move it again, almost the entire shape moves along with it. So what use is this? Well, if I don't have this activated and I move the selected points, then these are the only things that move. On the other hand, this way, that we'll use later on and in the next exercise, well, depending on the intensity and the strength, we get a much softer movement. Okay, let's go back to our nose, where we wanted to do something similar to what I've just explained. Okay, more or less like this, and see how it moves now. So if I want to move the bottom, I'll select these areas. And that's how I'll get the shape. Okay, great. So let's carry on. We're now going to make an eyebrow. We'll make one first, then we could use Symmetry to make the other one. So let's use a cube. Okay, something like this. Make it editable. We'll make some cuts with the knife. We can do one here and another one here. Now, as always, point selection and adjust this to the shape of the eyebrow. It's also helpful that we now know about the Hypernurbs, which we can use to our advantage. Okay, so we have this shape. We can drag it out so we can see it better. Okay, so remember that we can use the Hypernurbs, so let's apply it and put the shape inside, and we can then soften the edges, although we always need to add more segments so this doesn't happen. So let's just remove the Hypernurbs for a second, and we'll use the knife to make some more segments. Okay, we can activate it to take a look, much better. Now, just like we did earlier, we'll apply Symmetry. We'll place it inside here. And there we go, we now have two eyebrows. I also want to show you something else that I think is quite important, as you're going to use it a lot, and that is the bool, which is right here. So we did a short introduction of this in the first lesson, and now I'm going to show you how to use them and what they're for. It's just another way of modelling, using the spaces or gaps between different objects. So we're going to create the eyes. If we look on the image, the eyes are half circles or spheres. So let's place this sphere where the eye is on the image, like this. Okay, a little bit smaller. Around here. Now make the object editable. Actually, before we do that, let's add some more segments. So I think 30 is fine. Now make it editable. So now we only need half of the sphere. And we need to get rid of the rest. Point selection, then rectangle selection. Make sure this is not selected. And now we simply get rid of this part. Select this and raise it a little. Okay, and just make it a little bit bigger. Okay, I think this is fine. And we now have half a sphere, which is one of our eyes. The first cube we have here, which is the base of the mask, the totem, so we can rename it. So let's call it totem. And let's rename this one as eye. Okay, place the totem under the eye just so they're close to each other. Then we'll go here and select bool. Place the two objects, the totem and the eye, into the bool. Now you see that the mask has disappeared and the half sphere has remained. So what we have to do is select the totem and place it on top of the eye. And now what we have to do is take the eye and we need to move it inwards. And do you see what's happening here? The space we need to move this is automatically generated as we push the eye inside. Okay, let's put it where we need it. Now we can go inside the ball and select this option, which is to create a single object. Or here we have different options too, which you can just play around with. This option here is to hide the new edges, so the edges that have just been created. And just as before, all of this is completely editable. So I can select the eye, I can make it bigger. Okay, now we have the mask or the totem and the eye. What we're going to do now is take this eye and duplicate it. Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. Place it inside. And now take both eyes and create a group. Place the other eye and put it on the other side. Let's move on to the mouth. This will also be very easy. Create a sphere. Increase the segments. And also the size. Make it editable. Now we can stretch it. And we can adjust it to the mouth that we see on the image. Okay, so see here on the sides, there's this part sticking out. So we need to get rid of this. Let's go to our 4 views. Side view, we can get a better look. Okay, back here in perspective, we'll just cut away the part that we don't need. And now we have a little bit here that we just need to push in. Okay, we'll get rid of these little bits on the side and we can hide them. To make the lips, we could use a few different ways, but we're going to do it using a spline. When we used one earlier, we used Bezier. So why not try out a different one? So we could select freehand, for example. You do need to have quite a steady hand to use this tool, but it's also a good idea. However, I'm not too sure about it for this, so I'll choose another, linear for instance. So we'll go around the lips like this. Now, here in type, we also have linear, but we can select other options, and as you see, the line changes depending on which one we choose. So we could select one that adjusts better to the shape we're trying to create. I think the Bezier here works well. Then it's a case of adjusting these points to get the shape. So once we have this done, you'll notice that the spline by itself doesn't do anything. So we need to use another type of ready-made spline, which is a circle. We'll first make this circle smaller. So here in radius, we'll decrease the size quite a lot. So 24, for example. And now we'll apply another property, which is this one here, sweep Nurbs. Take the circle and the spline and place them inside this. Now let's take a look. So select the whole object, bring it forward. And what this has done is made, based on the diameter of the circle, well, this kind of tube. And like all the other splines we made, the circle is totally editable, so we can make it bigger or smaller. We can also modify the spline itself. So you can see this better, we're going to create a null object. And we'll then put everything else inside that null object. Then we'll make this invisible. And now we can see it better. So back to the spline. If I select the points and I move them, then you can see what happens. So, adjusting the points, we start to get the shape of the lips. Then we just need to place it where it needs to go. And with that, our lips are practically done. Okay, the mouth also has some depth to it, which we also need to represent. I think the easiest option is to create a cube and then use a bool. So we've got our cube, make it editable, If it doesn't fit, then we can just make some cuts. So here, another one here. Then we'll scale these elements. Like this. We'll do another cut down the middle. And this will give us the shape that we're looking for to make this hole. Okay, it's looking okay. Let's put this inside here so we can see what we're doing. Let's add another cut down the center, just like this. Okay, and another couple. Add a Hypernurbs and put this inside. And now we have the shape of the mouth, or the inside of the mouth. Okay, select the sphere, and now we're going to create the ball. And we need to put the sphere inside the ball. Okay, see here how we've missed a little bit in the corner? But to fix that, we can just adjust the lips. We'll just narrow it a little bit around there. Now, before we move on to the teeth, let's go back to the crown, and we'll finish off this part here. Let's make a cube, and this will be another feather. Make it editable, and just shape it. Now go to MoGraph, Cloner. Make sure the cube is editable and put it inside. Okay, go inside the cloner, set the mode to radial, put it in place. Change the plane to X, Z. Okay, there we go. Let's place this in the middle. We can increase the radius and the count. When we make lots of cloned objects like this, it's always a good idea to check this box here, which is render instances. This just means that when we render the image, the program doesn't need that much time. Now maybe we want to remove a few of the feathers. Maybe you could also adjust the end angle like this. And then we rotate it around. And here in Transform, we can also adjust the elements. We can make them tilt like this. Okay, all that's left to do is the teeth. But just a second, let's fix this part of the lip first. Okay, for the teeth, we could start with a cube. And we'll duplicate it like we did before, but we'll just do something quick and simple. Okay, so we'll scale it so we have a tooth shape and place it more or less where it is on the image. So what we'll do to finish quicker is apply a symmetry. So we'll put a tooth here, Control C, Control V, another one here. Let's rotate it. Control C, Control V. Okay, so select these elements together by pressing Shift. Right-click. Connect objects, so we merge them all into one object. Now remove the ones we don't need. And we have our teeth as one object. Now all we have to do is go here to Symmetry, put the cube inside, and now we have another set of teeth on the other side. But actually, let's just go back. There's something we could do before to do it properly. Let's leave an extra tooth just in case. More than anything for the two teeth in the middle, which we haven't made yet. Okay, this one goes in the middle. Now Control C, Control V to make the other one above. Turn it around. Now we can apply the symmetry to these teeth here. Okay, make this editable. Place the teeth inside and select all these elements. Right-click and connect objects. And that's our teeth. Obviously, they need to curve inwards to fit inside the mouth. And there is an option to do that, which is inside the modifiers up here. Now, there's lots to explain in this window, but one of the main modifiers is spherify. So let's give it a try and see how it looks. And as you see, it gives a curved shape. You can adjust the strength. So this modifier works well, and we just need to put the teeth in place. Now select the lips and adjust them so it all fits in properly. Okay, and with that, our totem is done. So we can grab all of this and put it all inside the null object. And we'll name that null object totem, and this is the whole object. Now to add a floor, we're not going to do it from here like we did before, but we're going to do it from a primitive object. In this case, a landscape. We'll scale it, and this will be our floor, our ground. It doesn't have to be too big, just big enough for the camera to capture it. So for example, something like this, we don't really need much more. As you can see, landscape has various options and settings. You can increase or decrease the segments. Here you can define the furrows or the hills. You can also adjust the sea level. You can lower it. And just adapt it to what we're looking for. Let's put the totem up here more or less. You can just leave it here. I think it's fine for now. Okay, to finish up the modeling part of the scene, we're going to make some small cylinders, and these will be the base for some trees. So create a cylinder. Let's lower the amount of segments. Let's scale it to like this. and increase the height segments. Make it editable. Now we'll go here to the modifiers and select this option here, which is squash and stretch. And place this inside the cylinder. Actually, I've used the wrong one. I actually meant this one here, which is bulge, which isn't quite the same. Okay, so you can see the kind of effect this element is going to give our object. So let's make it taller. Place it inside the cylinder, and now see how it changes the object to give more of that tree shape. We wanted the middle to be thinner. Doing it like this, we save a lot of time. You can also play around with the options for this effect, like the curvature, for example. Okay, I think we can leave it like that. I just wanted to show you this effect and the things that you can do with it. So we need to finish the tree off with a tree top, but we're not going to do anything too complicated, just something simple. We'll do a cube. So we'll place the cube around here, apply a Hypernurbs. Okay, more or less we have a tree top. So take these elements, group them together, and basically that's our tree. I'm going to place a few more trees around the scene. So we could choose a view like this one, and we could use this view to set up the camera. But first we need to add some colour, and when we've done that I could explain how to set up the camera. Okay, to make textures in this program, first let's change the layout to standard or startup. And down here in Create, you can add new materials. Let's select this one first, and we'll choose a colour for it. I'll choose a green colour. Then it's very easy. Just drag it onto an object to apply the texture. I could use this one for the tree trunk. So I can select a brown colour. And then again, just drag it onto the trunks. Now, if you want something a little bit more elaborate, what you can do is add layers and other properties to the texture itself. And you can do that here. If you click here, you get this drop-down menu with various properties. So you could add a gradient or a noise. Let's add a noise. And as you can see, the texture now has a grainy feel to it. Right now it's black and white, but if we go inside this effect, see that we have many more options. You can change the type of noise. Let's try this one. And you can also change the color. So we could choose one like this, and then a lighter one. We can also adjust the specular, which is this brightness you see here. Now let's apply this to our landscape and we'll see how it looks. Okay, let's apply some color to the totem. We can also add a sky to our scene. At the moment, there isn't really much to see, though the sky has a slightly different tone. What we can do is go to light and add some sunlight. The sunlights try to imitate, obviously, the light of the sun, and they have quite a hard shadow. Down here are the settings for the light. So like I said, the shadow is a hard shadow. In this panel, we can even choose the time of day we want. So here in sun, you can set the time and you can even add a date. So we could set it to around midday. And now see how the shadow changes. Oh, I've just noticed this tree is floating, so I'll just put it down a little. So as you can see, this shadow is very hard. We can lower the intensity of the shadow. Now it's a little softer. If we combine this with the anti-aliasing option, which was set to best, see how it looks a lot better now. I'll change the time to 8 AM just to see how it looks. You can also change the longitude and the latitude. So just try to find a light that you like and you think that looks good for the scene. I think this light is quite nice. So I changed it to 2 PM and I adjusted the latitude and the longitude. Now we could add the camera. Now let's just finish adding color and texture to all of this. Now for the crown, I'm going to explain how to add two materials to the same object. Okay, so select the crown. Now if we want the crown to be yellow, then we just take the yellow and apply it here. But now the entire crown is yellow. If we wanted the middle to be a different colour, then we need to select the central part of the crown. So select, loop selection, and then simply add another colour to that selection. If you look here, this triangle has appeared, and this triangle has associated itself with the material that we used. And this material, as you see, refers to this selection here. This is the same as if we go here to set selection. If we want this to be a different color, set selection, another triangle has appeared. So place this texture here, and then place this little triangle in here. And then it looks like this. So for instance, let's take these three. Now we just need to finish this part here. Let's add another color, like a blue, for example. And this will be for the rest of the feathers. Now let's just do this part properly. The selection that we had before, we're going to make that green. Okay, this has happened because we don't have this option selected. Okay, now we have it. So now we're going to add the camera. So find a view that you like, something like this. Go to camera. And you might notice this side is darker, and that's just the shape of the camera. If I click here, then I'm now inside of the camera. What does that mean? It means that if I click here to exit the camera and zoom out, then I can see where the camera is here. This is useful because we might be modeling this area here, but we can make sure that whatever we're doing is still inside the camera's view. So click back here, and we're back inside the camera. To lock this camera, just right-click, Cinema Tags, Protection. Let's go to Render Settings, and in Output, set the width to 1920, and the height to 1080, 72 pixels per inch. Another important aspect here is something called Ambient Occlusion. This is something that will improve the image a lot. We'll just activate this. Okay, I think maybe this view has moved slightly. I'll just unlock it. Well, actually, let's see how it looks first. So with the ambient occlusion, the light looks much better. In the next lesson, I'll explain this a little bit more, as well as some other features with the lights. Here we did a small introduction to some of the lights, like the Omni light, the sunlight, how to add a sky, although it was a very simple one. Okay, I like how the image is looking. Although, maybe I could add another light. Maybe something like this. I can lower the intensity quite a lot. So what if I want to see how the image looks, but only in a specific part? So maybe I added this light, but I just want to know what that area looks like. Just go here to Render Region. Select the part that you want to see, and you can see how that part is going to look. Okay, so click here to create the definitive image. And size is set at 1080. And as you can see, our image is being generated. So we'll leave this lesson here for now. It was quite long, intense, but there were lots of elements to explain. In the next and final lesson, we'll still be modeling, but we're going to learn more about the Hypernurbs. We're going to learn some alternative ways of modeling and also go further into the textures and materials. I'll also introduce you a little bit to the physics features, such as creating particles. We'll be defining the materials a little bit more, as well as the shadows. So remember, if we go here to color, we can add different effects, like a gradient. This is very similar to Photoshop. So we could do something like this part darker, this lighter. And there's our gradient. If we click Control, we can add more points. You can also change the type, so we could change it to diagonal or circular. Okay, so that's all for now. I hope you're enjoying the course so far, and I'll see you in the next lesson.